Hi everyone, welcome to Idea Talk. We're here today talking with Stewart Noakes from Canopy. Stewart, thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Hi, great pleasure to be here. Thank you. You know, I'm a raving fan of everything Idea, so really great to be here. Thank you.
So before we start, let me just ask everybody to leave their questions on the chat box next to this video, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to reach some of it, and Stuart may answer them. So I think we should start our talk by asking you, Stuart. Is it true that startups are probably better prepared to face times of crisis?
It's a great question. And just before I start, I want to give a quick shout out to all the members of the Canopy tribe, just to say hello in case anybody's watching from there. So startups, I think one of the main things about anybody who's an idiot enough to be a startup founder like I am and like many members of the tribe is that we live with a very high risk factor around failure every day. And I think in times of crisis, it helps to have that kind of conditioning. So I think that's one of the first kind of cultural things. You know, we are expecting every day around us 9 out of 10 of the other founders to fail and for us not to be that one. So as well as accepting that there's a huge amount of failure, we're also cursed and blessed with this kind of self-belief that we won't be that one that fails. Even though sometimes we are, we still don't believe it. And my DNA is I'm actually an only child, which means I have this inherent ability to just not believe I shouldn't be doing stuff. But every founder has this. And sometimes you can see it in arrogance because it goes too far. But it's this sense of belief in times of really high uncertainty that helps you keep traveling forward. And right now in this crisis, somebody with a traditional CEO background wouldn't have that mindset, but a startup founder does.
Okay, so what do you think it's how would you describe the mindset that will keep businesses such as startups and non-startups alive for these times?
Yeah, so I think, it's a great question. When I was thinking about it before we came on today, I think it's interesting to reflect that globally, startups, we dwell upon a lot of stuff. And in the Canopy programs, we dwell upon this a lot around why do we all fail? And when we look at those things, we proactively get ahead of them, we find success at the end of it. So the three main reasons startups fail, the first one is basically having the right amount of money at the right time. So it's about managing cash flow, it's about managing fundraising, but it's about watching how fast you spend versus how fast you earn the money. And it's a huge skill for right now as well. The second reason we fail is we build a team that is dysfunctional or doesn't have the multidisciplinary skills to really cope with the situation. And again, focusing in on team right now is very important. There's a core team of people in every business that will make it work. And how you communicate with those people, how you engage with those people is super massive for the success. But the number one reason why all startups or majority of startups fail is that we build stuff that nobody wants. We have these great ideas in us, and no matter what the evidence to the contrary is, we keep believing in those ideas all the way through. And there's a fine line between genius and insanity as an entrepreneur. But what we all learn to do is to become very customer-centric and to realize that no matter what we think we're doing, what the customer is paying for and what the customer values is what we really are doing. And that mindset for particularly experienced entrepreneurs who've done 2 or 3 startups before, that's just inherent in what we do. And if you're failing as a startup founder, it's because you're not listening to your customers very well. And I think for startups and traditional businesses right now, we have to listen very carefully to the messages which every consumer that could be looking at our services or products is giving us, is saying what they need, when they need it, what format they need it, what works for them. And there's money to be made as an entrepreneur in this business if we listen hard enough.
Okay, that leads me to another question. That is, so do you think success is more based on
about founders and entrepreneurs? And one of the reasons that a lot of us have some sort of medical or mental kind of defect is that we have different filters. So we see the world in a different way. A lot of founders have dyslexia. A lot of founders suffer somewhere on the spectrum of autism. A lot of founders have had some sort of poverty or social deprivation in their background. And, these have all changed the way they look at stuff. And because of that, they see opportunities where other people don't see them, myself included. But also part of the genius is being able to talk about those in a way that helps other people see them too. And that's a huge part of the game, if you like, or the journey as an entrepreneur and a founder.
Okay, and would you say that if you have, in one hand, a great idea, and in the other hand, you have great skills and tools, what would be the most important?
That's a good question. Sometimes we ask that question a different way around. So we say, which is better, a great idea executed badly or a bad idea executed well? And the honest answer normally is, if you execute well, it goes well. Even if it's a bad idea, a lot of people would say that going back a few years, VHS was far inferior to Betamax, but it was executed better. Blu-ray was better than DVD, but it didn't do quite so well. There's all sorts of different things you can look at, but if you can deliver on it, no matter what the idea, you can actually do those steps, you're going to be successful. And some of the work that we do with entrepreneurs is actually almost downgrading the complexity of what they're trying to do to make it something they can do rather than something that would be perfect if they did it that way.
Okay, so what do you think traditional businesses should learn from the startup mindset?
So I guess it's part of that insanity piece that they need to step a little bit further from the safety. They need to accept all the doubt and uncertainty around them and accept there's a lot more of that than there was, to listen much, much harder than probably they ever have done before to their customers. And that listening includes speaking to them directly. A startup founder in the first 2, 3, or even 4 years of a startup will probably speak to customers every day. They won't just look at emails. They won't just look at survey results. They will pick up the phone and they will speak to customers, or they'll go to events and speak to customers. That's huge. And it's about learning the mindset that a founder has that maybe a CEO doesn't, which is, how do you experiment well? So how do you, like a scientist, have an idea that what you're going to do looks like this, test it with people, and then learn very quickly what really you should be doing. And that's a massive part of being a founder at an early stage, making very simple, very small tests and learning very quickly to get to growth.
And how can a traditional company do that when they have already established business at this point? How can they, because it's not acceptable to take a few steps back, is it?
I think it is. And it also depends how affected we are by COVID, right? So, take schools as an example. Schools probably be out in the UK at least for a very long time, quite a few more months. And schools have to embrace a different way of working. That most schools and colleges and university are fixated about buildings, and nothing about the next 6 months of education in the UK will be about buildings. It will be about content. It will be about engagement. It will be about listening to the students. It will be about delivering in different ways. And it will have its own revenue streams as a result that go on. And a school and a college and a university that can do that well today with its existing students can globalize what it's doing in the future if it wants to. I think if you're a restaurant, you're probably struggling quite a lot right now, and you can reinvent yourself in a big way. And almost the more crushed you are by the situation, the easier it is to reinvent yourself, because you're reinventing everything and you're not really losing anything if you get it wrong. With an established business that still has a revenue stream, it probably has a portion of itself to reinvent. So it should gamble and it should test out proportionately with new ideas.
Okay, so we have been talking a lot about needs and the needs for these times. I think you will agree with me that remote work, for instance, is one of the needs we have like right now.
Yeah.
So do you think that would be a market with a lot of opportunities in the future?
I think I'm really, in some ways, part of the upside of the COVID crisis, if there is one to be discussed when obviously there are fatalities in the background. But one of the sort of plus points of recognition across the world is you don't have to keep commuting in the same way that you used to. And people have been talking about remote working, and there's been programs like Remote Year and stuff established over the last 5 or 6 years. And it's been a trend that people have seen and observed and admired at times, but not really fully adopted. And now everybody around the world has seen 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks of imposed 100% remote working. They know they can make a lot of it work if they're in financial services or normally office-based. They also know that they probably don't enjoy 100% remote working, that they like to have access to places where they can blend some of that and have some of that more team and culture and stuff. Places like IDEA, places like some of the great coffee shops that are around Lisbon, as well as the co-working spaces. But they can see what else they can do at home. And I think remote working will then, and hybrid versions will really inculcate itself. But I think also from a business perspective, they're looking at empty offices right now saying, how much do we spend for those offices every year? What if we got our whole team a co-working membership for a few days a month and everybody works from home wherever they want to the rest of the time? Would that work? Why do we have this building? Can we sell this building? Can we lease it to somebody else? Can we get rid of it in some way? And a lot of the town planners as well are looking at, can we reinvent cities completely? If we don't need offices in the same way, if we can enjoy the center of the city to be more creative space and more social space rather than more working space, how much can we change these things? What will that mean to congestion, pollution, traffic, cycling, leisure, and they're genuinely looking at how to reinvent cities off the back of this.
I don't know if you can tell us, but are you working with any entrepreneurs on that area, on that specific market right now?
Yes, I'm on the board of a company that is a car sharing and bike sharing company, and it's very involved in the planning applications and across the southwest in the UK, and looking at how mobility will change and how the cities want that mobility to change as a paradigm. So we're one of the few companies in the UK that has both electric bikes and electric cars, which it does across a sharing model. And so it means when we do installs in a city, you can have multimodal transport under the one brand. And so at the moment, you can get off the train, take a bike, or then get a car and go to meetings and stuff, or you can have a shared car as a city liver and a shared bike, just like in Lisbon, like with the jump bikes and stuff. But it's quite a unique recipe to have it all under one banner. It's not like Uber in terms of bikes and cars which other people drive. It's cars you drive yourself, like Drive Now. But imagine Drive Now having bikes and having more presence in Lisbon than it has right now.
It's something to just wait and see. I mean,
yeah.
It's just a matter of time because our needs are changing, and as you were saying, obviously this situation and all this pandemic forced us to some things that we were just stepping into, and right now we just had to do it all the way, and that's something that it's actually amazing how we can change so fast, isn't it, when we're forced to it?
Yeah. There's been a couple of really great quotes put on different parts of my feed recently, but one of the lovely ones I liked was, "Isn't it strange how much the economy is struggling when we only buy what we need?" That's quite interesting. And Hunter Halder from ReFoods put a few different things on his feed around how Mother Nature's kind of answering back to the idea that we couldn't make a change. It's kind of like, just stand there for a little while, hold my beer, I'm gonna show you what you can be doing, right? So air pollution is clearing up right now. Rivers are starting to look cleaner. People are actually, myself included, I'm exercising more, I'm enjoying more time with my family. These are all things we should have been doing before. And this situation has forced us to look at that. And while some of the consequences of that are really devastating, the actual what we should be reflecting on as human beings and the things we can now make changes because we've really seen that they can be done, we should be getting on and doing.
So what do you think it's our as people and as companies, the main thing that blocks innovation and flexibility?
So I think I've run some reasonable sized companies before, and one of the things you get stuck into as a leader is the structure that you have, both in the way you've built it and also the way you've funded it, and the reputation you've built kind of starts to control you a little bit. So, if you projected out 3 years, certain revenues, and then you took a loan, you projected those 3 years based on certain service lines, on certain customer bases. You had a plan. Now you're delivering against that plan to service the loan. It makes it very hard to change. And if you're running on thin margins and you're trying desperately to grow your way out of that, it makes it very hard to change. If you have built a reputation to be really great at banking, but your customers are telling you that they don't want your kind of banking anymore, you still have this reputation in mind. And no matter what the customers tell you, you still keep doing it the same way you did it before because it was how you were successful before, and you're not keeping relevant to today. And that's a very easy trap to get into, even in the big businesses, or probably particularly in the big businesses, this mindset that things change very fast nowadays as this situation forced upon us. But in technology terms, things change fast. In community terms, things change fast. In education ways, things change fast. And we need to go past our old way of thinking and say, how do we keep changing and evolving? How do we keep committing to a lifetime of a business of learning? And how do we keep committing to the succession of that business after business within the one brand, if you like?
Would you say that it's a company's culture problem?
I think culture plays a huge part in being proactive. The right percentage to accept failure is quite an important aspect. Nobody wants to bet the farm on black, hoping that it's going to turn up and then suddenly red's there and everything's gone. But spread betting a little bit, putting a little bit into innovation, a proportionate amount to keep growing. 10 to 15% of EBITDA really should go into innovation every year.
And how would you describe the Portuguese company's culture, for instance? What do you think about it?
I've met lots of different cultural paradigms in Portugal and in India and in the US and in the UK and other countries. And Portugal has a spread of cultures in its different incubadoras and in its different types of companies. The more old school ones still value, in my opinion, and when I've worked with them, still value hours rather than outputs. So, you got to be there at 7 o'clock at night. Still got to be in by 8:30 in the morning. It doesn't matter what you're doing or the value you've created. You've got to do those hours. The more contemporary ones value output over hours and are sometimes frowned upon, and there's hybrids in between. I think a lot of the corporates still feel to play with startups, they have to invest in them rather than collaborate with them and create marketplaces for them. But, there's a mixture, and Portugal has changed in my time in connection with Portugal, which is sort of 4 or 5 years, has changed exponentially during that time. And not all the companies have. But, yeah. Well, I love Portugal in general, and we laughed a little before about the thing that I sometimes say in keynote speeches. I regard it as the least assholes per capita ecosystem I've ever worked in. I think it's amazing. But not all companies can change, and not all founders can. I think, I'm 47. Any founders I know who are older than me, the stereotype or the typical thing is they're a little bit more fixed in their ways. Founders who are 20 years younger than me, a lot more fluid.
It doesn't mean that older...
I guess it's like tankers and speedboats, right? You're carrying around a lot more baggage with the size companies or with the different things that you're doing. And a startup is much more speedboat. It's more agile and able to adapt. And the founders driving the speedboats are much more open to the fact that they need to find those different ways and look for those different ways and have the energy for those different ways.
Okay, so would it be a great tool to, hire some younger people to join your team and help you improve and be more flexible?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a huge believer in reverse mentoring. And I think it's actually the wrong phrase, but people understand what I say when reverse mentoring, in the sense of if you're the CEO in a large corporate, you should have a mentor who's a graduate in their first year of intake. And people call it reverse because you expect the information to go the other way, but all mentoring is two-way if you do it right. And actually, if you're trying to be a more digital business, the new graduate should be mentoring the CEO this way and saying, this is how digital works, right? And I had this discussion with quite a large corporate CEO, and he said to me, I have this graduate who mentors me, and I don't really understand what she says. And I asked him a few questions about it, and I said, how long do you think it's going to take you to move to a more digital-first approach? And he went, probably 5, maybe 10 years. And I said, well, how long do you think it would take her if she was in charge? He's like, probably about 18 months. Like, well, why isn't she in charge then? It's kind of like, if this is your direction of travel, why are you doing it slow? And it was all in him and his ability to adopt rather than what was really needed.
Great. So, Stewart, we are at the end of our time, and well, I'm just gonna thank you again for your time and all your insights today. For ID Talk, we'll be talking with Ricardo Macieira next Monday. So I hope to see you guys there. And Stewart, thank you so much again. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Great pleasure. Thank you for having me.